Hey everybody, my name is Amit Schwarzenberg and I am the CTO resident for Microsoft for Startups. And today I want to talk about OpenAI and the partnership between Microsoft. But before we'll talk about the partnership, let's understand why Microsoft invested $1 billion in one startup. What does it do and what does it enable Microsoft to do and your startup? So OpenAI is basically a startup founded by Elon Musk and Sam Altman. It's also a research lab, safety policy, and commercial services. Their mission is to bring artificial intelligence to the public. They believe that it should be in the hand of people and not companies. And they did some very amazing stuff, like created a robot that can solve the Rubik's Cube challenge, and a jukebox that can create music out of nowhere. And also AI in gaming. You probably ask yourself, we've seen AI in gaming before, so what's special about OpenAI? So if you know the game Dota, it's basically 5 players versus 5 players. So you need to cooperate between all of them. So 5 AI cooperating together, that's a real innovation. But Bill Gates said it better than me. He said that AI bot just beat humans at a video game, Dota 2. That's a big deal because their victory required teamwork and collaboration, a huge milestone in investing in artificial intelligence. And if Bill Gates says that, I believe him. So you can also do some amazing stuff like write some text and get some picture. Those pictures that you see here are not from Google or Bing. They're actually created by the computer, by something called DALL-E. We recently launched DALL-E 2, so you can see an illustration of a baby daikon radish in a tutu walking a dog. And if it's weird enough, you can also ask for armchair in the shape of avocado, and everything that you want, you just basically write it in a natural text, and the computer will create it out of nowhere. Again, it's not Google or Bing Images, but it can do much more, especially in the area of natural language processing or NLP. So before diving into what is GPT, you probably heard a lot about GPT-3 and its capabilities. Let's understand what's NLU. NLU is basically natural language understanding, or NLG is natural language generation, and it can create and understand text. So for example, in this exercise, you can see the book Alice in Wonderland. Imagine that you have an hour to do a book report on an article or a book or whatever, but you just need to read 26,000 words and some more. What do? So you basically go and ask OpenAI, can you summarize this for me? No worries, it will do it. In the first iteration, you get 66 summary of 6,000 words. You need to do another run and get 6 summaries and only 830 words, but that's still a lot. And let's say you're capped with 150 words. So one less iteration, you get a complete summary of Alice in Wonderland. It's 166 words. But that's not really the text being summarized. It's the computer understanding the text and creating a new text based on the text that he just wrote. He just wrote the book, and so he said, read the book, and then he summarized it and created a new text. And that's the future. That's what GPT-3 is all about, and much more. But before talking to GPT-3, let's see what GPT is all about. So GPT is a generative pre-trained transformer. It's basically a different approach to NLP, natural language processing, that has been taken by OpenAI. AI is actually based about supervised and unsupervised data. Supervised data is when you give the computer a lot of images and label them. For example, a lot of images of dogs and just say, this is a dog, this is a dog, and more images with cats and say, this is a cat and this is a cat. And then you give him a new picture, and based on the picture that he saw before, you can understand if it's a cat or a dog. But that requires a lot of labeling work and a lot of data. So they used unsupervised and Azure AI supercomputer to just throw a lot of data into the computer, and then he understood from all this data what you need to understand. What does it mean? Like we humans do, we don't get to see a lot of picture, that's right and that's wrong. We have our experience in life, we get a lot of data, and then based on previous event, we can get and understand new materials. So this is basically unsupervised AI. So GPT-2 has changed the world and the mobile world. Every time you write something on your smartphone, you get this auto-completion. That's GPT-2. It's not new in 2022, but a few years ago it was amazing. And now, with 10 times more parameters and 45 terabytes of data, we have GPT-3. We have actually 175 billion parameter instead of 1.5 billion in GPT-2. And now we can generate text out of nothing. So let's see a few examples. You can create a copy out of nowhere. For example, if you have, you can just give the computer this title, Men Basketball Shoes Adidas UK, and the computer will generate like 100 samples. I just choose one. The Adidas range of men's basketball shoes is the perfect blend of style and performance, benefit from the latest technologies and innovation, whilst also looking the part at the court. You can just try it out, just look for OpenAI and copies, and there is many free software that can do that. And you can just generate what kind of text that you want, just from a few simple words. It's also great when you don't know how to market your company or your startup. So just use that if you are low on resources. It can also change the world of content. For example, if you know Neil Gaiman book, Wolves in the Walls, it's a great book. And Fable Studio actually wanted to bring to life the character Lucy. So she's a little girl, she has active imagination, she's age 8 and so on. And who is speaking to, the guest is a curious and friendly person who was just introduced to her. And now you can actually have a conversation with fictional character. Imagine what it's going to do to games, NPCs, and movies and VR activities. GPT-3 is here to stay. So let's go even deeper and understand what are the models that we can use in order to create our next startup or feature. So we'll start with DaVinci. It's the most complex and takes the max time to produce, and all the way to Ada that is less capable, but is very, very quick. So DaVinci will give you a summarization of summarizing for specific audience. It will generate creative content. Carrie will do answering question, complex announcement classification. Babbage will do semantic search ranking, and even a moderately complex classification. And Ada is the simpler one, and the most quick one will give you simple classification and parsing and formatting of text. So what has been done, we've seen Fable Studio bringing life to Lucy, and even Microsoft Dynamics creating a content for marketing. Also, Zabirium and Ross are great mention on content summarization, and spelling and Alagolia are great in search ranking and answer extraction. But there are more famous companies like Disney, Reddit, Twitter, and so much more. If you ever used Duolingo, they've actually created the grammar correction in French using GPT-3. To quote them, GPT-3 is a game changer for creating new AI-based product model, which require a team of researchers months or years to develop, can now be created in an afternoon. So even big startups use OpenAI to innovate and create new features quickly and rapidly, but you can do it too. So let's understand more about what Microsoft did with this $1 billion investment. So in 2019, July, we signed up a contract with OpenAI, and since then we have incorporated some of our products, and now we're giving it to you, the startups in our program. I really encourage you to check Founders Hub, or just Google or Bing Microsoft for Startups. And if you are in the program, it's very easy to accept if you are a software-based company, and get access to the new feature of OpenAI. So if you know our stack of products, Microsoft is not new to the AI domain. So we have the Azure Cognitive Search, Form, Azure Bot Services, and much more. And under the cognitive services, we used to have language, vision, speech, and decision, and we have a new friend now. This friend is OpenAI, and it's open for startups all over the place that want to really innovate and create the next generation of software. So let's see some example what Azure OpenAI can do. Let's see a quick video, and I will explain to you what you see in a second. So basically, you see a basketball game being summarized in live. So OpenAI is taking the summary of the game, creating summarization, same like we did in Alice in Wonderland, in real time. And at the end of the game, you just get a report about what happened. Imagine that you have an high school basketball or baseball game, and you just put a camera and the computer just give you the full report for the local news or online website. This is the future that we live in, and this already exists. So we didn't stop there. In May 2021, we used the Power Platform and Power BI to showcase GPT-3, and also we did it in GitHub with our product called GitHub Copilot and Codex, but we'll go more in a second. So Power BI, if you are not familiar with the DAX programming languages or programming languages at all, don't worry. You can just use natural text and language, write what you want to achieve, and the computer will generate the code for you. And you can enrich the way you are experiencing Power BI. Also, we can enrich the Power Platform. So no code is a really great platform, but sometimes you need to code. Not anymore. Again, in the Power Platform, you can just write what you want to get in a simple languages, and you'll get the code, and you get to create a more sophisticated programs with zero knowledge of programming. So it's not only going to change the world of the everyday user, it's going to also change the world of developers. So developers usually deal with a lot of maintain work, usually called code work, create, read, update, and delete, and doing HTTP calls, and very repetitive tasks. They go to the web and Stack Overflow and find repository in GitHub, public repository, and so much more. The problem is that you can copy bugs, you can you do a lot of context switching, and instead of just looking for the code, you remember to just check CNN or whatever, or even your email, and you're just going out of your IDE, and this causes a lot of problems. So you're less efficient and can copy the wrong code. So today we have several great companies that try to innovate on that field, from Tab9, Kite, and the latest from our products, GitHub Copilot. So we can see a quick example of a great product called Tab9. They can know how to complete the code. They know what parameter you're going to use, and it's really can accelerate the work that you're doing. It's based on GPT-2. So it's safe, it's on your local machine, and the only problem is that it uses a lot of memory and it doesn't go to the web. So let's see what GitHub Copilot is offering you. Based on OpenAI Codex, it's quite different than GPT-3 models. It's based on the same technology, but it's trained with less parameter, only 12 billion instead of 175, but it uses open GitHub repositories and other sources from the internet, all based on coding. So it's trained on one specific machine, take natural language and create code, or understand code and create more code. So again, it's divided into two algorithms. One is the Da Vinci Codex. It's the most capable, the most time-consuming, and it can really create natural language into code. And on the other end, there is the Korshman Codex. It's faster, and it's more suited for real-time applications. So it's up to you and your applications. So GitHub Copilot, let's see an example what is the future of coding. So instead of doing a simple autocomplete, you can now just write the headline of the function, and GitHub will autocomplete the function itself. So how does it work? Basically, GitHub goes online and take the code that you just started to write, send it to the GitHub Copilot services, and then start to provide you a suggestion based on the code that you have started to write. You can just use Tab to change between a few alternatives, and once you select the code that you want, you will actually improve the suggestion for the next user. So you're getting the power of the internet in your apps friend by using GitHub Copilot, and you don't need to do this context switching anymore, because GitHub Copilot go looking for in the internet for you and bring you the result. It works really great on all those code and very basic routines that you want to do in everyday life. So let's go and talk a bit more about OpenAI and Microsoft. What does it give us? It gives us an easy way to access APIs. It gives us acceleration of software development, and more important, we then can code. So now if even you're a junior developer or just want to write in plain English what you want, you can do it. The computer will auto-complete you, will give you the code that you need. It's not perfect, but it's the beginning of something wonderful. So the reviews from the internet are big time saver. It built out an entire React component for me. Copilot can autofill a repetitive code if it sends a pattern. Besides proving suggesting regarding code completion, it is also a very good spell detector. Yeah, people are actually using Copilot to just write text and not code, because it can also do that, and can also do a nice spell checker for you. So it's not perfect, and the critical sites will often try to invoke functions and variables that were never defined, because it uses the internet, and it tries to guess what function and parameters you use, and sometimes take more than expected time for Type9 plugin to suggest an accurate and speculation, and it is a lot of memory. So those tools ain't perfect yet, but keep getting improvement. And why is that? Because Copilot, Kite, and Tab9 analyze the code in the file context alone. So software development is not about one file, it's about group of files, a group of packages, they're all combined together to build an amazing software. And we're not there yet, we're only on one file context. Copilot uses a smaller memory size of only 12 billion parameters instead of 175 that GPT-3 is using. And the models are relatively new, so the more people who use them, the better they will get. So AI need a lot of data, and basically more usage, more data. So how can you use it to your advantage and create a better software? First of all, don't blindly accept the tool recommendation. Again, don't let unexperienced developer use the tool without proper guidance. You will still need to do a code review. And if you have junior developers, you need to code review their code review of the machine. So if that makes sense. And can you also use automated tools to check for vulnerabilities, because GitHub Copilot takes data from the internet. It can also get vulnerabilities into your code. So thank God GitHub will also a vulnerability check tool. So use them, or any other tools that you like. And of course, so now that you have more time, just improve your code review skilling and get more code review done with your peers. So even if you're a startup and you want to do it quick and fast, a GitHub Copilot can give you more breadth to work with. Just use it to code review the code before it goes into production. So just to summarize GitHub Copilot, developers doesn't need to look for a new job, because as I said before, it's only completed on a code on a file context level. So software development is an art. It's really the way of creating a lot of code file and combine them together into one big software. So don't worry about it. It's just going to give your life very, very easy and fast and faster development cycles. So enjoy it. So let's now talk more about Azure OpenAI and what it can give to your startup. We talked about the development phase, and now we talk about Azure API and OpenAI. So it can unlock business value with new experience, as we saw. It can also help you prototype concept in minutes. So let's dive into that. So we seen Duolingo creating French grammar correction in one afternoon. So how can you do it as a startup? So we give you a very simple UX that can help you from a beginner in data science to a very expert one. What does it mean by that? If you can see here the examples that I used before with the basketball game summary, let's see how it's been done with our UI. So first of all, you can just write what you want in a zero-shot approach. You can say, you can give a simple example and ask the computer to summarize the game commentary into highlight, giving an example of a little summary and the result. This usually doesn't work, or work 50% of the time. Probably it's better if you do a few-shot approach. So a few-shot approach is basically giving a few examples, and then the computer get better result, and this still need to be fine-tuned. Sometimes you need to ask better questions and so forth. But let's say an example. You give the question. The question is the cue. For example, with Batman, you give the answer. Batman is a fictional comic book character, and then you use the stop sequence to say that this was an example of a question. You give them a few of them. The more you give the computer, the more answers it will get correctly afterward. So that's called a few-shot experience. And this is how you can create the new MVPs and really create and test your assumption and code with OpenAI. And you can also use Expert to fine-tune it. You have an optimization tool, and after you finish and checking the model, you can just call data science expert to fine-tune it. So from simple iteration to a simple UI to a complex fine-tuning of the model, everything is available under OpenAI UI in Azure. But GPT-3 is not for everything, don't get me wrong, it's a great tool, but if you have a more highly tuned production model like Lewis or Q&A Maker, text analysis or translator, just use them. OpenAI is really great when you want to explore and use pre-trained few-shot examples, then fine-tune them for a specific use case or convert code to language or the opposite way around, and much more. And of course, we're also giving you the AI responsibility. So what does it mean? Responsible AI is basically give you a custom content filter because OpenAI is based on the content from the web. We've done that before, not Microsoft, also Microsoft, but the web is not the best place to get text from. So we actually created filters so you'll not get inappropriate text in your experiments or products. We can give you safety features as well and implementation of guidelines, patterns, and best practices. Also, because we are Microsoft, we are building for enterprise-grade scale, you get the security and reliability. You get critical enterprise security, compliance, regional availability, and of course, provision capability. So if we look at this summarization table, consider the real difference between Azure OpenAI and OpenAI. Again, OpenAI is a startup. Azure OpenAI is what led from the partnership between us and them. So we are adding the security and reliability. We are giving you the way to use billing. The inference and fine-tuning, of course, is same in Azure OpenAI and OpenAI itself. And we're also using AI responsibility, giving you a safety system control, sensitive word classifiers, and allow and block list. And of course, the GPT-3 models, Ada, Babbage, Kerry, DaVinci, and more are the same in OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. So what can your startup achieve? So very easy, let's go. You can do whatever you want, but if we go for a simple list, is a semantic search of a document, classification, conversation, Q&A, transformation of text, summarization, translation, even emojis, content generation, full sentence, cohesive paragraphs, creating training data, and even code completion, as we see in GitHub Copilot. So you probably ask yourself, how can we start? So we have a startup program that I mentioned before called Founder Hub. Just look for Microsoft for Startups, new program, or Founders Hub on the web. You will get access not only to OpenAI, also you get Azure credit, Microsoft 365, Microsoft Dynamics, GitHub Enterprise, and so much more, mentors and guidance. So check it out if you're not in the program. And if you're in the program, just go to the tab of Founders Hub and you will find it there. Thank you for listening. I was Amit. You can find me on LinkedIn and on the Mentor Hub and the Founders Hub. Thank you very much. Have a great day.